You're listening to CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and how we do it, call toll-free 1-866-928-3310, and we'll send you out a no-obligation information kit absolutely free. 866-928-3310. The CFRN Emini Futures Cast is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on your iPhone, Android phones, BlackBerry, and WebOS phones. Stitcher is smart radio for your phone. Find it in your app store or at Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Are you ready, Steve? Andy? Yeah! Bert? Well, all right, fellas. Let's go!
You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/CFRN. Over 85,000 titles. Choose from mystery, romance, religion, science, technology, business, New York Times bestsellers, even children's books. You name it, Audible has it. With 85,000 titles to choose from, you're sure to find the perfect audiobook for yourself or to give as a gift, and it's absolutely free. Just point your browser to audibletrial.com/CFRN. That's audibletrial.com/CFRN. And become a part of the audiobook revolution by downloading your free audiobook today. audibletrial.com/CFRN.
Hey, trader, want to get rich quick? Well, good luck with that. If, on the other hand, you actually want to learn how to trade, the place to be is www.cfrn.net. Tune in Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern for our daily devotional, and then spend the next 3 hours learning how it's done from professional traders who actually trade for a living. That's www.cfrn.net. Every trading day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro, and even T-bills. Joining us today from our studios in Boston, Mr. Michael Borth. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Monday, September the 11th, 2017. And I'm sure there's no one in this audience today or listening to this after the fact who does not remember where they were and what they were doing on September the 11th, 2001. So it's a day of remembrance, a sobering day, a somber day, a day that we reflect on not only what happened, but all that has transpired since that fateful day. Our country continues to be under siege, this time by Mother Nature, and also North Korea. There's a huge list that I won't burden you with. We are happy to note that Irma has been downgraded to a tropical storm at this point. the damage, the wreckage, and there's still some yet to come. But perhaps we can say that the worst is behind us at this point. We certainly hope that it is. But it's still on the move. No doubt about that. In fact, I want to share with you what Art Cashin, those of you who watch CNBC are familiar with Art. Art's sort of a legend in his own time. Not in his own mind, but in his own time. Today marks the 6th anniversary of September 11th, the 16th anniversary, the date of the deadliest attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. To remember the day and honor its heroes, legendary New York Stock Exchange floor trader and director of the floor operations for UBS, Art Cashin, republished his original comments. His writings captured the mood and the city at the time. He wrote this Monday, September 24th, 2001. This was the first day the markets reopened after 9/11. On this day in September of the fateful year 2001, America and the world continued to try to find some way to return to normal. There have been no comments since the atrocity on 9/11. All of our family and staff are safe, thank God. But my office was put out of commission. It was across a small park from one of the towers. We hope to get back into it this week and maybe begin regular comments next week. Many of us got out that Tuesday, walking through streets onto which ash, smoke, and business envelopes fell snow-like, blocking both your view and your breathing. Yet when a stranger was met, they were invited to join the convoy and offered a spare wet cloth, carried in pockets, through which to breathe as they walked. When we reached the East River, the Brooklyn side of Manhattan, there was a volunteer group of tugboats, fishing boats, and mini ferries that looked like the evacuation of Dunkirk. No charge, no money, just, may I help you? No one got anyone's name, no thank you cards will be sent. But Americans, even New York Americans, who freely give to strangers but argue with neighbors, were suddenly one group. In the days since, as we wander via new, strange ways back to Wall Street, we all internalize the survivor's quandary. We're lucky to be alive, but why us? As I noted on TV, none of us headed back to reopen the markets with relish or avarice. The president, the governor, the mayor, and all officials ask that the markets reopen to provide a means for the economy to work, to unclog an artery. Day after day, traders, clerks, and the thousands of folks who support them walked to work. No spring in their step. Resolute to do their job, they are civil but somber. As they pass checkpoints, they say thank you to the policemen, firemen, National Guardsmen, all who may have lost brothers saving us and some of our friends. Ironically, the only smiles you see on Wall Street are on the photocopied photos of the missing that family and friends have taped to walls, mailboxes, and lampposts. It may take a long time for smiles to naturally return to Wall Street. It may take a long time to find those criminals who took our smiles and our friends, but we will have patience. Well said and well written Art. If you don't know who Art is, you should Google him up sometime. Art Cashin. C-A-S-H-I-N. Chin. He is one of the good guys. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers. If you can't see the chart I have up, go to our homepage at cfrn.net. On the right-hand side of the page, click the big microphone, follow the instructions. You'll be registered through the end of the month. You only have to register once per month. The other option is go to youtube.com/CFRN/live. I don't have my additional monitor with me today, so if you're chatting with me from that chat box, I won't be able to pick it up. But the regular chat box off the CFRN site and go to that one is working just fine. Okay, these are the numbers today. Now, we had a very unusual thing happen. I was concerned last night when I looked at the volume numbers on the S&P, and I saw that they were almost the same for December as they were for September. And that's unusual. When we roll forward, typically we would not roll forward until this coming Friday. Thursday would be what they call official rollover day, and then Friday we would actually take the roll. But in all these years, for whatever reason, volume in the December contract has already exceeded September. I did weekly trading zones last night based on the September contract, as we have always done since we began publishing them in 2009, and so they stand, and we'll see how things work out over the course of the week. Let's start with the cash markets here in the U.S. The Dow is currently up 238 points. It's a little over 1%. The NASDAQ is up 67 points, a little over 1%. S&P 500 is up 24 points, again 1%. And the Russell 2000 is up almost 15 points, a little over 1%. One of the biggest, boldest, bullish days on Wall Street that we have seen in some time, with the storm and all that's going on. A little surprising. In the commodity basket, crude oil is up 64 cents, trading 48.12 last. It's up a little over 1%. Gold, first red spot on our screen today, down $14, trading 1337.20, and that's a little over 1%. In the Asian markets today, the Nikkei closed the session up 270 points. It's almost 1.5%. Shanghai closed up 12 points. And the Hang Seng also up over 1% today. Closed up 286 points. And last but not least, the theme of the day, green, continues. The FTSE up 35 points, 0.5%. DAX up 171 points. That's over 1.25%. And the CAC closed up 63 points. That's 1.25%. So we're green here at home, green in Asia, and green in Europe. And some strong numbers, you know, practically every market. 75% at least up 1% or better around the globe. Go figure. Go figure. All right. We'll go to Michael right now and get a recap of everything that happened in the live training room this morning. The good, the bad, the ugly. We don't sweep anything under the carpet. What happens is what you see as it happens if you're in the room, and it's what you see during the recap each and every day. So, Michael, I can see your screen.
Excellent. Okay.
And I'll hit mute on this end.
All right. I'll get right into it then. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon now, I guess. Today is Monday, the 11th day of September. It's 9/11/2017. Okay, if you have not taken a free trial with us, go to the home page at cfrn.net, and right here, this little banner is going to drop down. It says sign up for the CFRN Live Training Room, 100% free trial, user indicators, learn our strategy. Click here. And when you click there, it's going to bring you to this page, this one right here. Okay. You just need to put in your email, your first name, and how you found us. Okay. If you did an internet search, just tell us, you know, if you use Google or if you use Bing or whatever. And then once you do that, you'll be sent a confirmation link. You must click on the confirmation link. Okay, if you don't click the confirmation link, there will be no free trial information forthcoming, because we don't know until you click that confirmation link that you have actually signed up for the free trial. Okay. Now, the recap. If you're going to look at the spreadsheet, you could read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. And again, today is 9/11. We made 18 ticks in crude, and we lost 8 ticks in gold. That put us at $100 per contract. Excuse me. Today it took 84 minutes and 3 trades to get to our goal for the day, and we took a total of 4 trades. So it was a really slow day in the room today. On the month now, we're at 997.50. That's over 6 days, averaging 166 per day. On the year, we're $25,860. That's over 170 days, averaging 152 per day. Now that is one contract, 2 hours per day. One contract, 2 hours per day. Okay. All right, let's see what we did. Now I started out with a mistake right here, and I stopped out, and that's what took us so long to get to our goal for the day. You see right in here, there was a bounce off the BBC right here. That gave about 6 ticks in profit. So stop would have gone to break even, or maybe lock in a couple of ticks profit, but it did not put in a higher swing. I did not see that it did not put in a higher swing, because as soon as I sat down, I just saw this trade opportunity come up, and it was 9:32 when I actually got in my seat. I saw this trade opportunity come up, and I just jumped right in it without looking left. And if I'd have looked left, I'd have seen that there was an opportunity right here off the BBC that did not put in a higher swing. As it was, after stopping me out pretty much to the tick, it went up and did what it should have done, and then it had 2 follow-up trades right there, both of which I missed. Let's see, down here, during the break, it looks like there was a shorting opportunity right here, a momentum short right there. And that was it. Okay. The euro, today we didn't do anything with. Looks like we had just a couple of opportunities here that I missed. And then it just was not trending until, well, during the break it started to trend. Okay, once we got down here, then you could start taking some short opportunities, and that was all during the break. Okay. But during the morning session, it was a mess. Crude. The other 3 trades that we had were on crude. We had the 1 on gold and 3 on crude. So we had this one right here that I got 10 ticks on, this one right here that I got 8 ticks on, and that put us at the goal for the day. And then this one was at the end of the session this morning. This was at the end. It was at the end of the session this morning. I don't know why. It was right at the end of the session, so I don't know why the times are so off there. But and we had a break even on it. Okay, we ended up with a break even. During the break, there was a long opportunity right here. Another one there, and another one there. Okay, and right now, it did not get number 2 in here, so we don't have the bounce off the BBC there yet. Okay, and we were looking at the Russell this morning because the volume seems to be coming into this contract now. It didn't really give us anything because the ES was in and out of a weekly trading zone all morning. But during the break, there was an opportunity right there on the Russell and right there on the Russell. Okay, that was all during the break. Hang on, I gotta bring this over. Yeah, we rolled this morning, Karen. I think he probably already explained that to you. Okay, on the ES, we didn't do anything because of the zones here, but now it's broken out of the zone, and you still wouldn't have anything here because you got dynamic resistance right up above, and it would have been a momentum. Actually, it wouldn't have been anything. The slingshot's not right, but we didn't have anything there this morning on the ES. Today was just a pretty flat day. Okay, what we need is some volatility. That's all we need. Okay. All right. So let me bring this back up. Again, if you're going to read the spreadsheet, you can read all the CFTC risk disclosure stuff down at the bottom. Today is the 11th day of September. We made 18 ticks on crude, we lost 8 ticks on gold. That got us to $100 per contract. Today it took 84 minutes and 3 trades to get to $100 a contract, and we took a total of 4 trading opportunities. On a month now, we're at $997.50. That's over 6 days, averaging $166 per day per contract. Okay. On the year, 25,860. That's over 170 days, averaging $154 per day per contract. Who are they playing, John? Again, if you're going to read this, you could read all the CFTC risk disclosure stuff down at the bottom. And if you have not taken our free trial, then go here to the home page. Okay. The LA Chargers, not the San Diego Chargers. Go here to the home page at cfrn.net, and right up here where it says click here, just click there, and that will bring you to this page right here. When you get to this page, you just need to put in your email, your first name, and how you found us. Hit the submit button, and you'll be sent a confirmation link. You must click on the confirmation link. Okay, click that confirmation link, and you'll be sent everything you need to have 5 luxurious days in our live Emini Trading Room. Okay? All right, and with that, we can pass it back to Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Dwayne, if you are available.
Alrighty.
Okay. Okay. Step 1.
Alrighty. Recap of the recap.
84 minutes, 3 trades, $100 per contract.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, guys. So there you have it. Were there any unanswered questions in the chat box?
No.
Okay. Very good. Karen, I addressed the December contract at the beginning of the show. Did you must have tuned in after we talked about that, or did you ask that before I talked about it?
I think she asked it before you talked about it.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Yes.
You heard it. Okay, good. All right. Okay. Turning back to the storm, Irma's arrival in Florida Sunday hit several Caribbean islands, 34 dead. In Havana, waves crested 36 feet on Sunday, forcing Cubans and tourists to evacuate inland. Predictive models initially suggested the storm was heading straight for Miami, but Irma took a westward turn that helped that city avoid the worst. The hurricane was big and powerful enough to affect most of Florida. However, even parts that didn't come near the eye. The storm is almost as large as Texas, wide enough that both coasts experienced hurricane-force winds. I think about 70% of people in Florida are without electricity at the moment. Early reports indicate at least 5 people have died as a result of the storm in Florida. About 5.8 million homes, or 70%, and businesses, still no power as of this morning, and they say it could be days, weeks, even as much as a month for it to be fully restored. Sunday morning, water from as far away as Tampa was already starting to be sucked out by the storm, all ready to come rushing back in with the surge. The storm surge caused severe flooding in Jacksonville, Fort Myers, and other cities. Streets in Miami were also flooded, and high winds caused a massive crane to collapse onto a building there as well. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures. You turn on the TV, that's all there is. Record flooding is expected to hit Savannah, Georgia today. Storm surge warnings are currently in effect from South Santee River southward to the Flagler-Volusia County line north of Bonita Beach to the Okanokie River and Tampa Bay. Irma passed over some of the warmest water it has encountered before making landfall in Florida, which helped it maintain its intensity. It regained strength to become a Category 4 hurricane for part of the day Sunday, but its current wind speeds are hovering around 70 miles an hour. On Saturday, Irma began spinning up funnel clouds near South Florida, prompting at least one tornado to touch ground in the Fort Lauderdale suburb of Oakland Park. There are reports of several other tornadoes, and a few more are still possible across northeast Florida, ports of Georgia, and South Carolina through tonight. It's supposed to hit South Carolina, Alabama. At a press conference Saturday evening, Florida Governor Rick Scott said more than 6.5 million Floridians had been ordered to evacuate, and more than 70,000 had taken refuge in more than 385 shelters. By Sunday morning, that number reached 114,000 people in 500 shelters statewide. Scott urged evacuees to be patient and not return to their homes until local officials confirm that it is safe to do so. The latest forecast for Irma suggests the storm will cross Georgia later today and head into Alabama Tuesday morning. President Trump on Saturday urged everyone to just get out of the way. This is a storm of enormous destructive power. Property is replaceable, lives are not. Safety has to come first. And so, while it was difficult to weather the storm, the truly difficult part lies ahead for all of the people who have to go in and pick up the pieces and try to put life back together again. It's our hearts and our prayers go out to each and every person that has been touched by this storm. If you don't live there, there's a high probability that you have friends or family who do. And so, again, our hearts and our prayers are with all of you. And we continue, those of you in the audience, to continue to pray for these people. They'll still be feeling the effects of this years from now. Just as today we still feel the effects of 9/11. Two very different types of tragedies, but tragedies nonetheless. Okay, in other headlines today, Apple's redesigned iPhone 8 will be called iPhone X, as in the Roman numeral 10. Apple is expected to officially unveil the device in a press event tomorrow. Google has called a New York Times report that female Google employees make less than men extremely flawed. The report was based on an internal spreadsheet created by Google employees. Nintendo Switch sales are much stronger than the PlayStation 4. For those of you that are gamers. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook CEO, will testify in court later this month to defend his plan to create non-voting Facebook shares. Zuckerberg is scheduled to publicly testify in Delaware Chancery Court on September 26th. YouTube's biggest star, PewDiePie. Yeah, I know, you probably never heard of PewDiePie, or maybe you have. It's P-E-W-D-I-E. P-I-E. Pew... You would think it was PewDiePie, but it's pronounced PewDiePie. Used a racial slur during a live stream earlier this year. Now, it became quite a big deal because the Swedish web personality was broadcasting himself playing the survival game PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds when he used a derogatory word for African Americans. What a F, I'll let you use your imagination. N, again, he said. And then he said it a couple of more times. Well, he was streaming the game on his YouTube channel, which has more than 57 million subscribers. I know. Think about it. 57 million people subscribe to listen to this guy crack wise, use profanity, and play a video game. At the time of his comments, more than 30,000 people were logged in live, watching somebody else play a video game. After he uttered the slur, he said, "I don't mean that in a bad way," before trailing off and laughing again. Though he usually leaves his live streams up as archived sessions after they're over, this one, titled California Roll, is not available. This isn't the first time that he has stirred controversy. Earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal published a story detailing several instances of him using anti-Semitic imagery and phrases in his videos. As a result of that report, a deal with Disney and a produced YouTube show were canceled. And already on Sunday evening, at least one prominent video game developer said his company's games won't be allowed for use in future PewDiePie videos. "I am sick of this child getting more and more chances to make money off what we make." That comes from the co-founder of the game studio Campo Santo and co-director of the popular game Firewatch. "He's worse than a closeted racist. He's a propagator of despicable garbage that does real damage to the culture around this industry. Well, I got to tell you, some of these games, like Grand Theft Auto, I mean, I don't know too much about video games, but that one promotes, you know, popping a cap and a cop, which, if you're not familiar with the lingo, that means shooting a policeman, rape, the use of drugs, the sale of drugs, theft, Grand Theft Auto, yeah. So it's unclear how YouTube's going to respond to all of this. A request for comment has gone unanswered so far. One of their biggest stars sinking to the lowest of the low. Snapchat is tapping college newspapers to make campus stories and letting them sell ads. Stories will be visible to Snapchat users located near each respective campus. As you recall, Snapchat went public earlier this year, and it wasn't welcomed. I see John logging in. We'll hook him up as soon as his mic goes live. Facebook says it's unable to reveal the ads linked to Russia due to both federal law and the fact that investigations are ongoing with the relevant authorities. We're unable to share the ads, a Facebook spokesperson said on Friday. Uber's making rides in London more expensive so it can give drivers up to $5,000 if they buy greener cars. The firm promised to add more to the fund every time someone takes a ride through its app in London. YouTube Network's Full Screen and Style Hall were both hit with layoffs. The multi-channel networks helped to sell ads on YouTube. And finally, Uber rival Taxify has appealed the loss of its license and wants to relaunch in London. It had to suspend its services on Friday after Transport for London said it was urgently investigating the company. All right, looks like John's live. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Just one sec.
All right, we'll be here.
Okay. Okay. We're here.
You ready?
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi.
So, how was your
Does it
weekend?
sound okay? I just slightly altered the setup here over the weekend.
Yeah, no, you sound fine.
Good. No, actually, we kind of got affected a little bit by this Florida thing with the power outage and stuff. So we kind of got disrupted. So we're kind of getting back on track today. But it's fine. Late Friday, I kind of got a sense that the market might turn up. I think the late sell-off was some sort of a C wave, corrective wave down, which got completed on Friday, market-wise. Even on the FANGs and everything, and the semis, and this, obviously the fact that there was nothing out of North Korea on over the weekend helped. But I think the real reason why the market gapped up last night is because the storm was not as strong as it was expected to be. Even though the media was willing it on, because obviously after all the warnings and everything, they probably wanted the storm to be as bad as possible to justify their projections. But the fact that, look, we as you probably remember on Friday, we said the storm was moving west, defying everybody's expectations that it was going to go north immediately. And it hugged the Cuban coast, and it gave Cuba a pretty good pasting, actually. But the best thing about the way that it went north to Florida was it was losing its, it was kind of depreciating. It was getting weaker. So, I think Florida got a pass, actually, because at the end of the day, the damage was not really that bad in Florida, and the storm is obviously a lot weaker right now, and there was some rain. You know, there's definitely quite a lot of rain, but nothing of Harvey's size or weight. And so I think Florida really has come through this pretty well without too much. You know, I mean, that house getting its roof ripped off in Miami was something to see. It certainly wasn't a storm in a teacup by any means. It was a very, very powerful hurricane, and it certainly did some damage, and unfortunately some people got killed. So, you know, it certainly deserved to get all the attention that it did, and better be safe than sorry. The evacuations, if nothing else, was a pretty good drill for the future. And you know, it's tough being the president. As you know, his ratings got up to 46, I think, on Friday, and no matter how much he did, you know, over the weekend to do the best he could, you know, with all the with the government of every, you know, state, local, and federal governments, you know, his ratings are down today, possibly maybe because of this interview on 60 Minutes last night. You know, this Charlie Rose, he's so overrated, it's unbelievable. You know, I think he should retire. I mean, he kept interrupting. This guy's supposed to be the preeminent interviewer in the world. You know, it's really just so overrated, it's a joke. And you know, CBS is as bad as them all. You know, they're just CNN, CBS, MSNBC, they're all painted with the same brush. And they're always trying to gotcha journalism, and you know, you couldn't even give this guy a chance to talk. So it was.
I didn't see it. What was he grilling him about?
I only caught the. You know, our power was out during 60 Minutes, so I didn't get to watch it. But it was on during the night in the overnight news, and I caught some of it. Oh, you know, I couldn't even make head or tail of it, to be honest with you. You know, look, I think that, as I've said on this show, there was the pre-eclipse Trump and the post-eclipse Trump, and the post-eclipse Trump is a different guy. I mean, you've definitely seen a different kind of president since getting rid of all these hangers-on at the White House. You know, obviously this Reince Priebus is turned out to be a bit of a two-faced guy, and was really never 100% behind Trump, and he got the job in the White House and filled it full of leakers, and has really been a bit of a disaster with him in charge for the first you know, 8-9 months or so, 7 or 8 months. No, I think they've got the team, you know, better team today. Could do without McMaster personally. I don't think he's up to the job, and he's definitely a potential leaker, and you know, not. I don't think he's on the team. He's a loose cannon in there. I'd rather have Flynn any day of the week, frankly. At least Flynn was loyal. This guy, I don't know where his loyalty lies. So. But apart from him, you know, the team is pretty good right now at the White House, and I think you know, things are going to go pretty well. I think Trump is going to start cutting deals, and he's going to get the job done no matter what, with or without the Republicans. And obviously, there's you know, look, you know, Trump's made some mistakes in his life, and he's made some mistakes in his presidency. But he's the right, you know, he certainly has America's interests at heart. He's working for nothing. He's not getting appreciated. He's given $1.4 million to charity. We'll have by the end of the year. And no other president's ever done that before in office. Maybe Clinton's done some stuff afterwards with money he probably robbed from people. But you know, but you know, as far as a sitting president, this guy's done more than most other presidents, really, in many ways. And I think in time he's going to get appreciated. Look, his ratings are you know, slowly going up, but the American people are hard to please. And you know, he certainly has done a number of things that he could have done better. As I've said a number of times, you know, he's committed about 6 mortal sins that were really not self-inflicted, and unnecessary. But then you have to argue, would he have gotten elected if he hadn't? So it's a very, look, the past is the past. I think he's gotten the memo on a lot of things, and I think in time those ratings will go higher. I think once he gets above 50%, it'll be a pretty big deal. Getting into the, I think if he can get up around the 55 area in ratings, in approval and disapproval, about 45, that'll be a huge accomplishment given where he's coming from. But I think in time I've predicted before on the show, I think he's going to go to 70, on some deal or another. Maybe he's going to work out something in North Korea. And eventually that will be a huge win for Trump when that happens. But I mean, the Korean thing has got to be sorted out. And as Bannon was right, I mean, the last 3 presidents have left this country in a terrible mess. And it's a big job to dig it out from the mess that it's in. Remember, Obama is, put on more debt than all the other presidents combined. I mean, what a legacy this guy left is just unconscionable. And I mean, look, everybody calls Trump a racist. There's plenty of black racists on TV and in former governments that are more racist than any of the white people in this country. I mean, they got a huge chip on their shoulder, it's terrible. And everybody's trying to get what they can from the past in one form or another. Look at this thing with Poland the other day. They won $1 trillion in reparations from Germany for World War II. I mean, give me a break. That's incredible, given the way Germany is today, which is the a polar opposite of what it used to be, in the Third Reich. So, you have to give Germany a lot of points for where they are today as a country, even though they've made some monumental blunders, like the immigration policy. But it was well-intentioned, and you have to give them some points for that. Look, the situation is... sorry, I'll have to get that later. The situation is very difficult all over the world, and Trump is trying to make the best of it. And one of the things that has to be done is they have to control the immigration, because the U.S. is probably more attractive today than it's ever been, given the way the economy is and everything. And it's never going to stop. They got to put their foot down. And they have to control immigration. It's otherwise it's going to be never ending. This situation will never end. And they have to legitimize the people who are in the country one way or another. Maybe they have to, I think they have the authority, the moral authority to do it. Once the wall is completed and they have immigration under control, then I think they can probably find a path to making the people who are here legitimate in some way or another. Because deporting 11-12 million people is a non-starter, given the opposition that and support that the Democrats are going to give them. So one way, but I think there's a lot of political points that Trump can win by finding a solution to this problem, and that will make him very, very popular. And I think it's something that has to be done sooner or later. There's no other way around it. And there's a lot of human compassion attached to it, because these people, whether you like it or not, they're integrated into the society. And to be fair, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. are much more integrated today than they ever have been before, culturally and politically, and also, business-wise. Canada and Mexico are the 2 biggest customers, the 2 biggest markets for U.S. goods. That's a huge deal, and to be fair to Mexico, the richer Mexico is, the better it is for the U.S. because they are enamored with the U.S. in spite of what you think. They're more starstruck by Hollywood and all the stars and everything in Mexico than you can imagine.
Yeah.
And the same, absolutely. And they are a model of the U.S. Really. They're becoming more American every day in the sense that they're becoming more prosperous and becoming more like Americans every day in terms of what they're, the American dream is the Mexican dream. And there's more opportunity in Mexico today than ever before. I mean, remember, look, everybody beats up on Mexico and has been for generations. When are they going to grow, and when are they going to do this, and when are they going to do that? And in spite of a weaker peso and everything else, they are more prosperous today than ever, and they have grown incredibly in the last 7 years. 17 years. They've grown 7 or 8 fold. Certainly in stock market returns, Mexican market's at an all-time high. On the day that Fox was elected in 2000, the Mexican market was at 5,000. It's around 50,000 today, so it's gone up tenfold. It's actually gone up tenfold in 17 years, which is incredible. And look, Brazil is a basket case today compared to where Mexico. Even though Brazil grew exponentially, it hasn't had the shakeout that Mexico. That Mexico hasn't had the shakeout that Brazil's had, and Brazil's had a very, very severe shakeout. Australia is another interesting example. Because Australia and Canada are very similar because they're basically the resource currencies, and they tend to go up when gold goes up, which is happening right now, and when oil goes up. But Australia has done brilliantly. I mean, they've gone about 3 decades without a recession. That's incredible. And Mexico has gone I think they've gone about 17 years without a recession, in spite of, remember they had that thing in 2009 that got hit by hurricanes, and the flu virus and everything. Mm-hmm. They did have a very bad quarter, about a -5% growth, and they got through the 2007, 2009, where America got clobbered. Mexico, got through it without too much strife. So, and actually, I was talking about this recently. The tax deal that America hopefully is going to get is such a no-brainer. As I've mentioned on this show, the top 7 GDP per capita countries in the world today are all tax havens in one form or another. Either they're like Qatar, which is basically a tax haven, but it has some of the biggest gas reserves and oil reserves in the world. The UAE is another example. Luxembourg, Switzerland, Cayman Islands, all these countries are very, very high per capita. But as an industrial country, the one that's sort of the darkest horse of all, the most surprising, the most shocking of all, is little old Ireland. Ireland is currently the 7th wealthiest country in the world. I mean, listen, for somebody who was, practically born and bred in Ireland, raised in Ireland, I mean, you used to look at the U.S. as being the almighty. I mean, they were like, the cat's meow. We were tiny little Ireland, and in awe of everything in America, and in England for that matter, and in Europe. And Ireland today has a per capita income approaching $70,000. I think it's upwards of 70,000, 73 or something like that. And they're projecting by 2020 it's going to be 79,000, and it's going to make them the 3rd richest country in the world. And the reason for that is because they have the best tax deal outside of a pure tax haven.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10% or 12% tax, and because of that, and because of their language and everything else, they have attracted, they become the European headquarters for Fortune 500 and just a multitude of U.S. corporations. I mean, Amazon has a huge presence in Ireland. Microsoft's been there since beginning virtually. Apple, Netflix, everybody, they're all there, and it has been unbelievably beneficial to Ireland. So the government in Ireland has done an unbelievable job. I mean, listen, Ireland was the canary in the coal mine. It was the first casualty in 2007. I remember distinctly. I think there was about 46,000 jobs lost before everything hit the fan. Ireland got hit first, and
why was that?
Because I guess because they were sort of like the real estate boom in the U.S. to the power of several, because they had this massive property rise, and they had this massive construction boom, and then all of a sudden they lost 46,000. If you multiply that out, it's like losing 1.4 million jobs in a month in the U.S. And I remember thinking to myself, this is really bad. And it was the beginning of this disaster, for Ireland. But Ireland was the most indebted country on earth, even more than Japan, a few years ago. And things were really, really bleak. I mean, properties were going for 10 cents on the dollar, and people got hit, unemployment soared, and it was really, really tough. But Ireland has come back with a vengeance, and a lot of people don't know this. But, remember, the European recovery didn't start it started a little bit in 09, 10, 11, but it didn't really start until 14, 15, until Draghi started really, stoking the fire in Europe with his plan that's going fantastically well right now. And Ireland is the biggest beneficiary because, unbeknownst to many people, the first quarter of 2015 in Ireland, the country grew at 21%. 21% in one quarter. So this is why Ireland is becoming the richest country on earth right now. It's kind of amazing to witness.
Now, isn't that where Google and Apple and these other countries park their money?
Everybody's there. Yeah, exactly. And they're all there. And all these trillions of dollars that they want to get back to America, probably a lot of them are parked in Ireland or England, because both England and Ireland in a way are kind of tax havens per se. But the most fascinating thing is the GDP. I mean, the GDP in the U.S. is around like 55, 57, something like that right now. Ireland is way ahead, And remember, they did discover oil off, right within a mile of our house in Kinsale, actually, and gas. So, Ireland's had a mini oil boom to help it, but it's not an oil, it's not like Saudi Arabia per capita on a per capita basis. I mean, it's potentially going to become self-sufficient in oil and gas pretty soon, which is a big deal, on a per capita basis. So that has helped. Because if you have, it's just like the UK, if you're self-sufficient in oil like England is, it makes a big difference. But look at the difference in GDP of Ireland versus England. It's amazing that England has a GDP of about 46,000 per capita right now. And remember, England is booming like it's never. I mean, England right now has the lowest unemployment on a ratio basis since the 60s or the early 70s. Before England had its crash back in the mid 70s. So, and remember, England went through a kind of a 1929 scenario if the market went from 547 down to 147, which was as bad as 1929, and then it's had a meteoric recovery since and has become very wealthy. But, you know, Ireland, in comparison, has become, you know, dramatically more wealthy. So it's really amazing. But it is a huge, you know, it is a really, you know, just like the canary in the coal mine, it is an example of what will happen to the U.S. if we get corporate tax cuts down to 15%, and if they can get the personal tax rate down a lot. I think I hope that Trump's plan will be that you know, that a family can earn $50,000 a year tax free, and a person can earn $25,000 a year tax free. I think that's a huge incentive to every person in America, because, you know, being able to put food on the table and being able to earn a certain amount of money tax free really is an incentive for everybody to aspire to want to do that.
Right.
You know, and I think to have a family be able to earn $50,000 a year tax free is just brilliant. I mean, it's really going to you know, boost growth dramatically. And look, the government has to be part of the economy. In case people haven't figured it out yet, there's a reason why China has been growing at 9% for 3 decades. I mean, basically, it's kind of like a larger version of North Korea, but a benevolent version, not a, you know, horrible version like North Korea is today. Mm-hmm. China, the regime, the communist regime, has gone capitalist, and they have driven the economy in a way that, you know, no other country in the world can compete with, because they have the power. They have the power to be part of the economy and drive it forward, and they've done an unbelievable job, you know, basically being able to hold on to power and empower the Chinese economy and people to grow in a way that, you know, there's the envy of the world. It's an absolute miracle. And you know, while you know, we have to be careful, because all these regimes can you know, eventually fail, and one of these days that might happen in China, and it could be very dangerous for the world. I mean, China is at the limits of its growth right now, and it is a, you know, just like 1929. You know, China is kind of like where America was in the 20s, and it is, you know, one of these days the Chinese economy might implode, and that will be a very bad thing when it happens. I think it might be quite some years off. It might, you know, we might run all the way to 29. We might go to 2029, and the Chinese bubble will eventually pop, and we might have a Chinese depression, you know, in the 30s, just like the U.S. had in the 30s. And that'll be a pretty lean period. But I think there's so much going on in the meantime, and there's so much growth still to come, especially with the you know, hypersonic transport. I mean, look, fortunately for the U.S. and Europe, you know, they are the plane makers to the world, and their order books are so full of, I mean, there's like 10,000 planes on order just in Boeing, and probably the same in Airbus. So, I mean, there's basically 15 years of growth basically built into these economies before we start getting into trouble. And the Chinese and the Russians as well, for that matter, have just kind of come up with, you know, mini-me type planes, if you like, a 737 type version in China, and Russia has the same sort of thing. So, you know, the competition to the U.S. and entrenched U.S. and European plane makers is on the horizon, and they have to be very, very careful. The best thing that can happen to the U.S., to Boeing and the U.S. plane industry and Europe, is for hypersonic transport to get going really quickly here in the next few years, because that will give a shot in the arm to the airline in the aviation industry in a way that will probably ensure growth, hyper growth, that we can't even imagine right now. And I also think that the automated driving that's coming is going to do the same thing to the car industry, and it's going to create a tremendous amount. All this innovation, including possibly the flying cars and jetpacks and things. It's going to be a great period. I mean, we're really going to have probably 15 years of mega growth.
When do you think you'll actually be able to go out and buy a driverless car? What year?
Pretty soon. I think by 2020. By the end of this decade, it's coming. It's coming.
Wow, that's just a couple years away.
Look at this thing that Musk. I mean, this Musk is a pretty canny guy. That he suddenly just drops this thing on everybody that nobody ever knew, that he can actually extend the battery.
I know, that was amazing. That was amazing. Well, supposedly, if you owned one, you knew that, but it was quite expensive to have it done. But he did it for free for the people in Florida.
Yeah, well, it shows you what's coming, because imagine, obviously what they're doing is just like sort of Microsoft upgrading your computer.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you got Windows 10, it sort of really does happen automatically. You don't have to worry about it. It seems to happen very, very efficiently, all these upgrades. And I guess that the car of the future is going to have all this stuff built in, so that these upgrades will come, and the automated driving is going to be a really, really big deal pretty soon, because there's so much time wasted in commuting, where you can't do anything except drive. Imagine if you're able to drive and you can actually do stuff in the time that you're going back and forth to the office.
Mm-hmm.
or wherever you're doing. And not only that, it's going to make cars safer. I mean, look, in a way, the car industries, even though they won't tell you, the crashes are a great business for the. Do you know why? Did you see what happened to the cars the other day? All the car stocks went up quite a bit. You know why? Because 100,000 cars that have basically been written off over the hurricane is a kind of a shot in the arm to the car industry, if you think about it. Certainly enough to make the stocks go up a bit. So, and Ford and all.
Yeah. And people have to be careful, because these cars, are going to hit the secondary market as resales once they get cleaned up, and you have to be cautious about that.
Yeah, but I think they'll have to get written off. They get condemned because there's some laws. You can't actually export these cars anymore to a lot of countries. They won't accept them. So they're probably going to be recycled, a lot of these cars, and it will be a boost to the industry. But if you think about it, another reason. Look, somebody was talking about these cars the other day on TV, and they are getting, they kind of been in a downtrend for quite a while, and they look like they might be about to break out. And one of the reasons is, it's sort of like computers. The software becomes more valuable, and as this automation trend evolves, it's going to increase the profitability for the car makers, because the people are going to, just like anybody, as I've said before, there's 20% of the U.S. population are pretty rich, and they are the kind of people who want the latest thing no matter what. And as soon as these, the first versions of automated driving cars come out, there's probably going to be a big increase in demand, and the market's already sensing that ahead of time. So it could be a time to be starting to look at some of these car stocks as that might be starting a new uptrend.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of cars. A lot of cars were underwater and once a car has been underwater, can they be salvaged?
They can actually, they can be cleaned up, but it's pretty hard. It's pretty tough. And the engines, it's I mean, they can do anything with cars these days, but it's expensive, and there's a lot to, it becomes an economic. Is it worth it to, I guess there'll be opportunities. The cars aren't too badly affected. Maybe they can be, sold. But generally speaking, a lot of these are kind of insurance losses, and they may get shipped overseas, and if they leave the country, it still creates demand.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Did you notice what happened with the futures overnight? Well, normally we would not roll forward till December, until this coming Friday. But the volume in the December contract has already exceeded the September contract.
Well, it tends to happen. Good point you raised. I did notice that, and actually we already switched everything over to December, and just about everything. And because it's time. It's this week, and so it's time.
Yeah, Thursday is what they refer to as official rollover day. Like if you're on TradeStation and use a continuous contract, Thursday you would automatically get rolled over. So what do you think caused the volume shift so early this time?
Probably just timing and potential, and maybe the gap higher last night. I think. Well, I mean, isn't the end of this week that expiry?
I don't think it expires the end of this week, but it just first became available last week, and so since 2006, this is the first time I've seen the volume exceed basically a week early.
Well, remember, Dwayne, look, how long have we been trading December gold, right?
Yeah.
It's and the silver. It's like I think a lot of the December has become the default month. The what you call it, the spot month, if you like. Look at, I mean, how long have we been trading November beans, for example, and the wheat and the corn and everything? I mean, nobody wants to know about September anymore. So I think, and coffee and cocoa, they tend to turn out to go over early. Speaking of which, the coffee is actually, both coffee and cocoa are acting quite well. I think we called the lows on coffee back the other day at around 127, 128, and it's up to 131. I think the fact that, I mean, coffee got hit pretty hard, remember, from the, it got up to 140 something, and 145, 146, got beaten down pretty hard, pretty sharply. And fortunately, we were short for all of that run down. We covered and reversed last week, and the coffee has been acting quite well. And remember, the coffee had a meteoric rise upwards off the 115 bottom, which we also called, and then it had this very sharp correction. I think the coffee, is probably a pretty interesting. In an interesting new uptrend here. The sugar also, Cuba got such a beating that I think the sugar is responding a little bit to that today. The orange juice also has been very, very strong, and is, there may have been some damage to the orange crop, so the orange is up today. As you know, I think we mentioned it on the show that we sold the lumber up around 390, and it's limit down today, so we're pretty happy about that. The cotton also, we sold up around 75, 76, 75 or so, and that's down to 72 today. The wheat is trying to, I think the grains are trying to go a bit higher here. They're pulling back a little bit today. They actually went up last night, came back. The gold and silver are on a mild pullback here. I think they're in a buy area, somewhere down in this area. You know, maybe not today, but in the next couple of days they might be a rebuy. And by the way, our old friend Dry Ships recently has been acting quite well, and it's been basing out. We got we called the bottom not so long ago before it took off, and it had a run up. It's been very, very choppy. It's a very difficult stock to trade, so be very careful. But it does appear to be. I wouldn't rule out, another quite sharp up move in this stock fairly soon. The drug stocks are not doing that well today, but the semis and most of the indices themselves are doing very well. The fact that the second week in September effectively is starting off as strong as today is very, very bullish for the market. Very, very bullish. This new upwave that's happening today opens the way for the Dow to exceed 22,150 and possibly start a run towards 26,000, which is our next interim target. And the whole, we've got the NASDAQ futures potentially ready to hit 6,000, get back above 6,000. That's very, very big deal because the next stop is 6,600, and it puts the NASDAQ comp up towards 7,000. Just that I mentioned Dry Ships, it's popping right as we speak. It's just hit 250. How about that? By the way, I got my system back up.
Good.
Boy, I was working till 4 o'clock trying to put it up. We had a power outage yesterday, kind of messed things up. But it's a monumental task to get it back to where it was. But it is. It's as the week progresses, we'll be able to call the market better, hopefully. And the other thing is the oil sector, the oil complex did come down quite a bit. Today was a buy down at the lows, and I think you need to be. Look, the products, the gasoline and the heating oil have had a huge correction off the highs, which, as you know, we sold last week, and we were gratified to see the crude go down. But I think you've got to be long crude now, because the surprises may well be on the upside, and you still got this Jose behind that could become a problem for the crude if it heads into the Gulf. But I think the crude is going to pop. Look, you've got the King of Saudi Arabia is going to Russia in October, and they're not going to be talking about their grandchildren. I think they're going to be talking about how to get the price of oil up, because the IPO of Aramco is coming probably in 2018, and the Saudis are going to be doing everything they can to get the price of oil up. And actually, what's happened here, even though we got an increase last week in crude, it's very likely the next few weeks, per what Ed was saying last week, there's going to be some drastic drawdowns because production has been shut in. It's actually dropped about 1 million barrels per day in the last 1 million to 2 million actually in the last few weeks. So that could result in a very big rally. We're at 48 right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get. Oh, I think if we get over 50, the oil is going to start going higher. And by the way, the oil stocks have been beaten down very, very hard towards the previous lows in a lot of cases in some of these ETFs. And I think that a double bottom is kind of in place. Actually, there's quite a lot of positive divergence between some of these oil indices and ETFs. That's a sure sign that a bottom of some consequence is being put in here in the energy sector. And remember, you know, sometimes when you get a hurricane, a multi-hurricane type summer or fall like we're having, you can have a very, very, very cold winter. And as you know, I personally think we're going into an ice age of sorts starting in 2018. We've kind of had several very cold winters, and this one might be a really, really brutally cold winter, which is going to be very positive for energy. And since the economy is growing as well as it is, and is likely to grow strongly into the fourth quarter, next year could actually be quite a high demand year for oil and energy in general. So next year, remember, they've taken about 200 million barrels off the market worldwide over this year, basically. So since they started cutting back on oil, so the market could come into balance much more dramatically than people are expecting, and the supplies might actually start to falter. Remember, every single day of our lives, every single day, today is no exception, we're losing 5 million barrels of oil that has to be replaced. Somebody has to go out and find that oil and produce it and put it onto the market, and it equals about 2 billion barrels a year that has to come on stream. And listen, with the cuts they've put in, that's about 3 billion barrels. And if they can't produce, if they can't find another 3 billion barrels next year and the year after going into 2020, and the Chinese keep buying cars at the rate they're buying, I mean, they're talking about the number of vehicles in China doubling by 2020, 2021, same in India. I mean, they're going to find themselves, I'm telling you, mathematically, it's practically impossible, given that they've cut $500 billion out of exploration. It's mathematically impossible that if we are if demand exceeds 100 million barrels by 2020, there's no way in the world can produce more than about 95, 96 million barrels a day. And they might even not be able to do that by then. And that's going to create dramatically higher prices in oil. And that fits the picture with the way gold has been trading. We've seen pretty strong rise. We got up to 1350, 1360 even, and silver up to 18. If oil starts hitting $60, $70, you're going to see gold and silver much higher in 2018. So the markets in general. Look, the dollar is, apart from today, the dollar is rallying today, but up until last week, the dollar has been beaten up pretty hard. By the way, the Chinese yuan is rallying very, very strongly because of some stuff that China did over the last few days. Now, whether that's sustainable remains to be seen, but it's pressuring the US dollar in a way as well. So all of these things, if the dollar breaks down from here after this rally, it's probably heading for 90 and or lower, 87 even. And obviously if that happens, it's going to be very bullish for the metals going into the end of the year.
Where's the dollar at right now?
It's at 91.625 right now.
And what kind are we? We're in December?
Yeah.
Yeah, somehow that doesn't quite look. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks a little more like it. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I want to mention a bit about Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
This Bitcoin, in spite of the, basically what's happened is Bitcoin ran up to 5,013 or somewhere like that. And then it had an A wave, right, down to just about 4,440, somewhere like that. Then it had a B wave up to 4,600. And it just had a C wave down to down to about 4,000, just touched. It went slightly below 4,000 overnight, and now it's had quite a good rebound already. I think the Bitcoin might be a buy here. I'm not recommending it, by the way. I'm just telling you that's what I think. But it looks like it could be a buy, and it could be on the meteoric path. If I'm right, and we start going to new all-time highs, if we exceed 5,000, I think it's going to go to 48 to 8,750 sometime in this quarter, or in the next couple of quarters. It's going to go berserk. Simply because it's sort of hitting, somebody made some sort of article about it with it's kind of got. That 20% of people who make things happen, not just in the U.S. but around the world, are sort of getting enamored with this Bitcoin, and in the same way as they sort of see this pullback. Because I got a call from a guy out of the blue. He'd be the last fellow in the world I ever thought would buy Bitcoin, and he actually asked me when it was the last time it was at 4,200. He said, "Should I buy?" And I said, "Well, maybe you should, maybe." And it ran up, and now I kind of, now that it's back to 4,260 or so where it is right now, I'd probably say it's probably worth a shot.
We actually launched a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency page on Facebook over the weekend, and I'll pull it up here. It's pretty easy to find. It's called Crypto Daily Info. So it's just facebook.com/crypto daily info.
Start checking that out. It's probably so. Basically, what you're doing is sort of providing. It's a good idea, Dwayne, because there's no place you can go where you can get the.
Yeah, it's sort of just all
Get
the
scoop,
headlines.
Get the scoop on Bitcoin, the daily scoop.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've already had.
Have you got charts of it? Have you got charts of it and stuff?
I've got some links to different exchanges where you can.
Yeah, you should see if you can chart it on that free website. You got free chart website. Which, by the way, I think
the CME has a contract, but there's no volume in it yet.
Did you hear what I said? I said I think it's one of the best charting sites out there. Your chart site.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Have you done any upgrades on it since?
No. In fact, I don't know if it's going to continue. I don't think it's going to continue to be available.
I think you should try, because I think if you do a few upgrades to it, it could be a really good source. It's worth considering.
Yeah.
But anyway, because what I do like about it is, you go to a lot of these charts, and if you put a penny stock in, sometimes it's not available.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on yours, I think you cover pretty much everything.
Yeah, we try. We've tried to. I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
I'll talk to you about it.
Alrighty. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure, as always. Thanks very much for the invite.
Hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking with you tomorrow.
Yeah, this is a big day for the market, by the way. This kind of action where it gapped up and then based out, and then it's pushing higher here, going through your... look at the way it hugged your support line during the night. That was interesting.
Yeah.
and then it broke above it. This obviously a very good day for you personally on this trade. One of the best days you've had for a long, long time.
Yeah, well, we're gonna tonight's alerts will be on the December contract.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had as good an up day in the Dow as this for it's probably going to end up closer to 300 a day the way it's going.
We're up over 250 points on the Dow right now.
Yeah.
Let's see what the latest numbers are. Looks like the Dow is up 263, Nasdaq's up 72, S&P's up 26. The Russell's up
this
60.
is very bullish. This is, I mean, to be like I say, you know, the fact that the market is, it's almost like it's got a new lease on life here. You know, it's had a couple of pullbacks, and now this you know, really dramatic high volume up day in the second week of September. I'm telling you, it doesn't get any better than this. And it's actually a really good reflection on Trump that, you know, the market believes in Trump. The market's the best indicator of Trump, unless anybody hasn't figured that out yet. I mean, you know, this, if this keeps going, and he, as I said on the show last week, when I talked about the real bull market that started September 29, 2015, that's really the, you know, the measure. And the reason I did that is because I wanted, you know, it's easy to sort of, how can I say, measure the tax benefit from January 20th, 2017, right? But that's not really the full story, and it's important to keep in mind, you know, when you start, remember when back in Reagan's time, you know, the bull market started in 86. You know, the real liftoff actually started in 85, and then they started talking taxes in 86, and they didn't get the tax cuts. The tax cuts didn't happen until October of 86, and then the market went totally wild. I mean, then it literally almost doubled from there. So it's very important to keep in mind where this whole tax thing started, which was September 28th or 29th of 2015, which is, you know, not even 2 years ago, but it's a 2-year bull market that's been going. So, and we haven't gone up that much really, you know, in that time compared to 1986. So we got a huge amount of upside ahead if we break above these recent resistances. And you know what might be an interesting idea, maybe for tomorrow's show, is if you can kind of check out the longer term S&P to see where we are in terms of your support levels and where we, you know, what a breakout would look like, because I think there's going to be a very big breakout here soon in this market. And you know, if they keep this wealth, you know, the wealth effect, the 11, probably 12 trillion worldwide now, and 4.5 trillion, or 4 trillion, 4.5 trillion or so in the US, and that starts becoming 5 or 6 trillion as the market goes higher, it's really going to be a very big deal. You know, it's going to push this growth to 4%, 5%, maybe even 6%. You know, we got to be like China. You got to get the government in there with the infrastructure. I mean, there's so much stuff. Look, you got 200 billion. I mean, look at the size of the Texas economy, and imagine a $200 billion injection, you know, stimulus into the Texas economy, and maybe 1 trillion in the U.S. economy. I mean, it is really something to savor. The impact of this could be absolutely dramatic. And, you know, it's not just the trillion that goes into it. I mean, it sort of spawns. Not only is it going to spawn new industries and new growth and new development and
job creation, yeah.
Exactly. But then you've got the rest of the world where you got a unique situation worldwide where all of the boats are being lifted. So I think we got to, since it's September 11th, let's salute the military and everybody who's done everything to keep us safe since then, and salute and give our condolences to everybody who's suffered and died, including all the poor people who died because of ISIS and the horror of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could have been prevented. 9/11, maybe
well,
not.
it's so sickening. It's so sickening. I keep thinking about it. I mean, there's a lot of pictures of New York before 9/11 floating around today on Twitter and stuff, and it's so sad because they were such beautiful buildings, and they'd still be up there if George Bush the first hadn't screwed up the first time. And it's just, and look at all the poor people who died because of that, because they didn't think ahead, like Trump is thinking ahead today. You cannot allow this maniac in North Korea to go, to get away with what he's trying to pull off here. If you do, it's the end of the world before, sooner or later for all of us, because it will kick off a, somebody said, Malaysia is going to want nukes, Thailand, Vietnam, everybody. Mm-hmm. It will be a disaster, and they've got to nip this thing in the bud, and they've got to do it. And it's the same, they've got the right idea now. I think they've learned their lesson with ISIS, the horror of what can happen, and they got to snuff this stuff out once, as quickly as it rises anywhere it pops its head up from now on. The world can only be saved if they nip this nuclear thing in the bud and don't allow it to foster any more. It has to be done. And today's a pretty good day to remind everybody, never forget.
Amen. Well said.
All right. All the best.
Thank you so much, John.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, and that's going to take us into our good word for the day. Relationship and fellowship. 1 John 1:6. If we say that we have fellowship with Him, God is responsible for your relationship with Him. The moment you put your trust in His Son, you are a fully accepted family member. But you are responsible for your fellowship with God. The Bible says if we have fellowship with Him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. Stop and think about the last time you experienced tension with one of your family members. You are still members of the same family, but your conversation became superficial, and you found that you were more comfortable apart than together. When something happens between two people who are normally close, the first thing to vanish is the evidence of fellowship. It's the same in our walk with God. Suddenly our prayers become surface and shallow. Lord, please bless this food. Amen. And we begin to avoid spending time with that person. I just don't have time for devotion. The main prerequisite for experiencing fellowship with Him is following Him each day and obeying His commands. When Peter and the disciples were fishing, God told them to cast their nets on the right side of the boat. And when they obeyed Him, they caught a boatload of fish. But something even greater happened that day. As Jesus drew closer, John said, "It is the Lord." John 21:7. What followed was an intimate meal and a sweet time of fellowship. So if you're feeling out of fellowship, chances are that you've either stopped fellowshipping with Him or started disobeying Him. Which is it? that's the case, do something about it. That's our good word for the day. Reminder, alerts tonight will be on the December contract. Typically, we would not be rolling forward. Well, we roll forward when volume exceeds on the new contract the old contract. Typically, volume would not exceed until this coming Friday, but it has exceeded early. And so this morning in the live trading room, we were on the December contract on the indices, and the alerts tonight will be on December. So I'll make note of it in the alerts. It'll say roll forward to Z. So make sure you do that. Also, if you have not taken a trial with us in the live trading room, just go to apply.cfrn.net. If you've taken a trial in the past, you need a second chance, just send an email to support@cfrn.net and we'll take care of you. Okay? If you have any questions, you can call 949-423-6464 or drop an email to support@cfrn.net. It's going to do it for today, September the 11th, 2017. A day of reflection, a day of sadness for many, but gratitude for all of us. And to all those who have been responsible for our safety and well-being since that day, and to those who gave their lives on that day, thank you. And thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading Emini Futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.